never forget what happened in that hotel. I was never the type of person who scares easily. Usually when someone tells me ghost stories or creepy internet stuff, I laugh it off and move on. But what happened that night changed something inside me. Back then, I was working as a freelance video editor for an American client named Jason. He wanted cinematic footage of an old hotel that had supposedly reopened after being abandoned for years. The hotel was far outside the city, alone near an empty side road. No traffic, no nearby stores, nothing. The moment I parked outside, something felt wrong. Not exactly fear, more like pressure. Like the whole place was heavy. Rain was falling softly, and the parking lot was almost empty. I stayed inside the car for a minute, just staring at the yellow light above the entrance, flickering every few seconds. Then I grabbed my camera bag and went inside.
The lobby was silent. Not peaceful silent. The kind of silence where you can hear yourself breathe. Nobody was at the front desk at first. Then suddenly, a man's voice behind me said, "Good evening." I almost jumped. I hadn't even noticed him standing there. Older guy, maybe late 50s, wearing an outdated suit that looked decades old, and he stared without blinking. I apologized and laughed awkwardly, but he only smiled a little and said, "Most people get nervous their first night here." Something about the way he said "people here" bothered me immediately. He handed me a key, room 407. I asked about the elevator, and he stared at me for a second before saying, "It stops working after 11. I checked my phone. 10:47 p.m.
The staircase felt endless. Every floor quieter than the one before it. By the time I reached the 4th floor, the temperature had dropped hard. The hallway smelled like wet wood and old carpet. Somewhere far behind me, a door slammed shut. I turned quickly, nobody there. My room was at the very end of the hallway. Room 407. The key barely worked. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed was the window already open. Curtains moving slowly, even though there was no wind outside. The room itself looked clean, but old, too old, like nobody had touched it since the 90s.
I started setting up my camera equipment when I heard a soft tapping sound coming from the window. Tap, tap, tap. I checked outside. Nothing. But while closing the window, I saw someone standing behind me in the reflection. My heart dropped, and instantly, nobody there. I laughed nervously and blamed travel exhaustion. Then, tapping started again, this time from the room door. I opened it fast, empty hallway, except for a girl standing motionless at the far end. Long dark hair, grey hoodie, face hidden. I called out to her, but she didn't respond. Before I shut the door, I heard her whisper softly, "Don't look out the window at night." That was the moment everything started getting worse. Later, the TV turned on by itself. Static covered the screen. Beneath the static was whispering. As I stepped closer, the voice became clearer. Open the window. Then violent knocking exploded against the door. I checked through the peephole and saw the old receptionist standing at the far end of the hallway, smiling directly at me, like he knew I was watching him. Slowly, he raised one hand and pointed behind me toward the window, and right then, the window opened on its own. Everything after that felt unreal. Hallucinations, impossible sounds. A hallway full of people dressed like they were trapped in the 1980s. An elevator that should not have worked. A burned floor hidden above the hotel. VHS tapes showing footage from 1987. A fire, guests trapped inside. Emergency exits locked from the outside. The old receptionist standing calmly while people screamed for help. The girl in the grey hoodie finally told me the truth.
hotel manager caused the disaster and covered it up. Everyone I saw inside the building died that night, including her. But the worst part wasn't the ghosts. The worst part was discovering footage of myself standing outside room 407, dated years before I was even born. The hotel wasn't haunted normally. It was repeating the same night over and over again, and somehow I became part of it.
When the manager finally broke into the room, he barely looked human anymore. Burned skin, twisted neck, eyes locked directly on me. I escaped through a tiny emergency window and ran down the metal fire stairs while hearing him scream behind me. I reached my car, shaking so badly I could barely drive. The second I got back onto the main road, my signal returned. Dozens of messages from Jason and Ethan flooded my phone. One message stopped me cold. That hotel has been abandoned for years. Attached was an old news article about the 1987 fire.
I thought it was over after I escaped. It wasn't. A few minutes later, I looked into the rearview mirror and saw the girl sitting quietly in the back seat, staring out the window. She noticed me looking and whispered, "He's still there." Then she disappeared. Ever since that night, every few days at exactly 3:07 a.m., I receive a new image from an unknown number. Same hallway, same fourth floor, same room. And every single time, the figure standing outside room 407 is closer to the camera than before.